Hey, good morning. It is Sunday, early a.m., Mother's Day on the 13th of May. So I got a lot of Mother's Day events planned, so I'm going to knock out a quick coffee talk right here and throw that out to you guys. I hope you have a good Mother's Day. Call your mom. Make sure you call your mom. If you are a mother, make sure someone calls you. Already got a nice dark roast today. My plain Jane mug. We're going plain Jane today on Mother's Day. But yeah, lots of good events planned out for my wife and my children's mother, so it should be fun. I get to go shopping today. Treat them like a princess. Make it happen. All right, we got 3 things we're going to talk about today. Maybe something else if I think of it as I go along. I'm going to look at the missions and specials, and we're going to break it down into a quick update of the rip-off shenanigans in the gift shop regarding my little adventure last week or 2 weeks ago. I got a funny, humorous little update for that. We'll take a look at that. The Object 268 version 4, which is a ridiculously overpowered tier 10 TD, is getting a nerf on super test. Those numbers can change. We're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about how silly it is in regards to a couple other tanks. That one should be fun. And I'll give you some Frontline thoughts early on Frontline. We'll talk about Frontline a little bit. And maybe something else at the end, I don't know. But grab your coffee, Sunday morning early. Or potentially Monday morning. I know some of you watch this on Monday morning. Let's get started with Coffee Talk. Before we get to the gift shop shenanigans, let's take a look at the missions. We're over on events. Tech Tree, the Italian Tech Tree release is an event. That one is, if you play it all, you're probably done with, but you get a couple slots out of that, some tokens, you get some kits and whatnot. And like I said last week, these boosters are the best thing. Reserves, credit reserves, are the best thing you can get. Guess what? The on-tracks are now events. Remember, I talk about whether it's a mission or event, who knows? Okay, Bat Chat on track, and on track probably is kind of an event. So good on them. They've shifted it from missions over to events. That's where it went, if you were confused. If you're like me, you check both, so you probably already realized it. Going over to missions, we've got the 2 tank mastery things going on at once. Let me just talk about how I can't really wrap my mind around that. They offset them so they kind of overlap, but then I have to ask why not just put 8 on at a time and then shift over to the next. I don't understand why you would make it that complicated. Wait a minute. I do. It's wargaming. Sorry. Sorry. So, this is going to be a fun one today because I'm going to laugh a lot at wargaming. Other missions. Well, what are these other missions? Well, you've got the Hunt the Sheriff. That's usually down there in the other missions. And then you usually have the cats and dogs and other missions. Well, they did this big deal with Gigi Buffon. I don't think his name's Gigi. What is his name? Giancarlo? Gigi? I'm going to call him Gigi. Who is a soccer player. A very good one, actually. Plays soccer better than me. Probably a big old dude and plays a lot of sports better than me. But anyway, they have done this deal with him where he's going to lend his voice to Italian crew, or at least one Italian crew as far as I can tell. And you can win him. Which is weird to me. That kind of goes back to the whole female crew thing. But anyway, you can win Gigi's voice as your Italian commander. All right, cool. It comes with a free Brothers in Arms slot. Cool. I think it'd be cooler if you want a whole crew, but I don't. You know what I mean? Because the Italians don't have crews yet, unless you're just finishing up some of the missions, some of the personal missions. So there was no way to get those yet, and that would be kind of cool to. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track. But nowhere would you really know this is the Gigi Buffon, or Buffoon. I'll call it Buffoon. Sorry, Gigi. I'm sure you're a great player. I shouldn't call you a Buffoon. But Gigi's event doesn't have its own billing. Sorry, brother. You're just another event. All right, what do you got to do? You have to do three. You have to do three, or what are they calling them? What's the word? Anyway, 3 missions. Let's just call it that. They had a word for it. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, you've got to go. Crew is Wait a minute. Let me do the math. Let me do wargaming math. Where's 1? 1 is right here, of course, in the bottom middle. All right, are they doing this on purpose just to troll me? Or us? Not necessarily me. They don't even know who the hell I am. But are they doing this on purpose? 1 is there. Where's 2? 2 is bottom left. 3 if naturally. Oh, there's a flow. 1, 2, back up to 3. No, down to 4. Damn. Oh no, 4's done. Maybe that was the flow. Was it 4, 3, 2, 1? It may have been. It may have been 4, 3, 2, 1. From top left to right to bottom left to right. All right. The point is, you got to do all 4 of those to get the goal. Get it? Soccer, the goal. And you will get GG, Buffoon, for the Fiat 3000. And then you'll spend gold to make him something useful. They do have a mechanism for selecting crew members, premium crew members, and deciding what nation and type of tank they'll go into. Now here's an idea. I'm just brainstorming here. Just remove the nation pick and let people pick what GG Buffoon is in. That's hard, isn't it? Isn't that hard? That's hard, yeah. We should probably... No, let's not do that. That's hard. Let's move on. Did I mention he doesn't get his own billing? I sort of did it in passing and laughed, but that's kind of important. But wouldn't you, if you did this big program with GG Buffoon, the great soccer player from Italy, I assume he's from Italy? Has to be, right? Well, it's wargaming. He actually could be from somewhere else. Maybe he plays for Italy. Anyway, I'm sure he's Italian. Wouldn't you put a big billing across that mission? The GG Buffoon Memorial Most Excellent Make a Goal mission or something like that? Because you spent all that time with your marketing guys and they made a really cool event, and then they gave them to the UI guys, and the UI guys shit on your event. I mean, I don't try not to use words like that all the time, but come on, man. All right, that's the only reason I came back. I had to say that. Man, on this coffee talk, I'm glad I have some coffee. Let us talk about Premium Shop. Okie dokie. So, we'll just go over to vehicles first. And take a look at what they got. Holy cow, they are selling a lot of stuff. If you're a conspiracy theorist, run for the hills. They're cashing out. The game is closing in a week. I don't know, maybe it is. But, very strange, they've got a lot of specials going on. So they are really, really pushing lots of discounts. So the Rack 5-1, which is a Tier 8 premium British tank. It's an Australian version of the Centurion. That's out. I hear it's pretty good. No idea. Don't have it. Several kits for them. How come I can never remember the word? Fully loaded. All right. The word will come to me in a moment. The 59 Patton War Chest is out. You get that with a war chest. There's an IS-2 out there, war chest. There's the Berlin 5. You can get the Berlin 5. Now it used to be the Quartet. Now it's the Quintet because they added the Sherman in there, not the Fury, the other one. IS-2, Tetrarch, Berlin 5. Holy cow. Oh my gosh, we're not even done. We've got the GF is out in case you wanted overpowered Tier 8 premium with no weak spots. Wow. The hard sell, brothers. The hard sell is happening. Let's go over to specials, because this is where it gets fun. Of those tanks, the GF is obviously good. The 59 Patton I would avoid. It's trash. If you're a collector, go to it. The IS-2 is decent at Tier 7. I wouldn't call it overpowered. I know nothing about the rack, so I can't say anything about that other than what I've read, and I've heard it's actually pretty good. But if you got a FV 4202, then you probably don't need a British medium trainer. But need doesn't have a lot to do with some people. Excuse me. For some people, it's just want, and that's cool. So there are some pretty good tanks in there to get. As far as the rest of the quartet goes, the ISU, the Cromwell B, which is fantastic. The Sherman's a Sherman. It's a tier 6 Sherman. ISU. What's the one I'm missing? Quartet. Help me out. Where is it? Let's find out. I'm missing one of them. Cromwell. Thunderbolt. That's what it's called. ISU. Oh, the 3045 Rudy. The 85M is better. The Rudy's cool. It's got a dog as a crew member. Remember, that means it's only a 4-place trainer, which is a little bit strange, but actually might work out for you. Take a look at it because it might be set up the same as the tier 10 RU mediums, so it might be a good trainer as far as that goes. All right, let's move on to the shenanigans. If you remember what last week or 2 weeks ago, I bought a package that was 30 days of premium and it had a LTP, which is a tier 3 Russian light tank. And I thought I was going to get the gold for the LTP. Because I own the LTP. I did not get the gold for the LTP. Why did I not get the gold for the LTP? Because there was a blurb down in the details that said if you own the LTP, you don't get the gold for it. Remember that the policy in general is that if you own a premium that you buy from them out of the shop, you will get the gold equivalent for that premium. People buy, for example, the Berlin 5, having owned all the tanks, getting the discount, and then getting the gold for the tanks. What I don't know about that is if they get the discounted gold for the tanks. Be careful about that one. That might be in the details, but that's not the point of this one. We're not going there. That's a good question, though. So I expected to get the gold for the LTP. I did not, like I said, because there was clearly on the details of the offer that I wouldn't get it. Okay, so I went through a couple iterations with support and found out that I wasn't going to get it, and that was it. I reported to you last week about that. Now, and it was one of those available to you things. Let's take a look at this. We have a T127 bundle. That's the word, bundle. I can never remember that word. We have a T127 bundle available for me, just special for me. Only one time per account. That's it. Never to be sold again, right? And it has a T127 clearly, and some other stuff. A garage slot. Oh, 500 gold. Interesting. And 2 more items. And it's $9.99. 7 days of premium as well. Original price $19.99, $19.92. Well, that's a pretty good deal for $10. Now, let's say that you looked at that and go, hey, I want to buy this. Well, you hover over it and you can't see what else is there. You also cannot see any details, that dreaded details thing. If you click purchase, you don't get the details. There are no details. However, if you click on here and go to the page, you do get the details. Now here's what's interesting. So that's interesting because if you just click purchase, they never tell you you're not going to get your gold. That's one thing. Thanks for that. I did not do it that way. Full disclosure, I did it this way. But then when I look at it here, I say, all right, well, I'm getting 7 days of premium, but the main part of it is the tank, right? This is the crux of it, apparently, according to their policies. You get all these things for $9.99. You go down to the details. This is where it said on the LTP offer. I'm sorry, it's not the LTP offer. It was a 30-day offer with a free LTP. It says nothing about not getting the gold. So it looks like, in this case, you have a tank and some premium with a normal price that took into account both the values of both those things, plus 500 gold, plus credits, plus a garage slot, discounted down to $9.99. You're going to get the gold for the tank this time. But because what I got was 30 days of premium primary with a side gig of a tank, and that one took in the whole value of both things based on the original price discounted. I got Bubkiss. That makes no sense, other than they just arbitrarily decided on that one particular bundle that you weren't going to get the gold for whatever reason I cannot comprehend. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just, that's incredible. So this is a $19 value down to $9. By the way, this is actually a really good deal. If you don't own the T127 and you like to troll tier 3, this is actually a very good deal. It's 50% off. For $10, this is easily about a $19 value. And that's what it says, but if you try to buy all these things separately, you would get up to about $19 pretty quickly, if not exactly, based on what they're worth. I looked into it, so you're getting 500 gold, a 127, a slot. In my case, I should get the gold for the 127 and 7 days of premium. So I couldn't tell you not to buy it because it's not a good deal, because that's not true. I could tell you not to buy it because ridiculousness, which is true. But you have to make your own determination on that. I just thought I would update because I found that to be absolutely ridiculous. Let's move on. So we're going to talk about the Object 268 nerf and how ridiculous the whole situation around buffs and nerfs are. But before we get started, if you want a good laugh, go find Sir Foch's rant on the Bobject. Which is what he calls the 268. I found that to be hilarious because he said, I call it the Bobject because every average Bob can kick butt in it. Realize that Foch uses a lot of colorful language, so if your feelings get hurt by that kind of thing, I don't recommend his videos. But if you want a good laugh, I highly recommend that video. It's pretty funny. So related to that, of course, is the 268. Version 4 is getting a nerf. I like how they put version IV on this. This is off of the Armored Patrol. All right, let's take a look at this. Some changes that are happening. The engine power is being reduced by 150 horsepower. So it's no longer a 1500 horsepower engine, 500 above the nearest thing. It's only 1350, 350 above the nearest thing. Okay, I guess that's a nerf. Top speed. The 20-mile-an-hour reverse speed has been slowed by 2 miles an hour. That's going to get them. That'll get them. That's going to get them. And the aiming time has been increased to 2.3. Do you realize it's less than 2 seconds aim time on that massive... I didn't realize it was that fast an aim time. Whew. Wow. That'll just stomp it into the dirt, won't it? I mean, we should see about, well, what does it need percentage-wise to get in line with everything? 5% decrease in win rate? We'll get into that in just a minute. Man, that's going to show it. And there are some debuffs to armor. So let's take a look at this. This little hatch, see that little sliver right there? That little sliver right there? That bad boy has been decreased from 252 to 232. Take that, Bobject. And this slightly bigger one is from 252 to 232. Realize if it's the same kind of modeling as the Foch, it's actually this part. I haven't looked at the model, but it's probably actually this part that matters, and I think that's pretty much, if you hit those little edge things, it usually doesn't do anything. So that'll do it. And all right, we got a front armor buff, man. Look at this. 36, except it's the tiny little sliver right there. And if you ever try to shoot these things, what are they doing? They're going back and forth and rocking, and their front's moving up and down, and they're doing this because they have 18 miles an hour, 20 now, but soon to be 18 miles an hour backwards, and they look like this while you're trying to shoot them. They're duck and weave. I mean, this is like Muhammad Ali, man. This thing literally floats like a butterfly and stings like a hammer blow to the head. Okay. So I'm laughing a lot. That super test, you don't know what's going to happen, but that's what they're looking. This is what they're claiming is going to bring this thing in line. Okay, I guess. Holy cow! But let's take a look at the macro part of this, the big piece of this, that they're nerfing a tech tree tank, but they're not touching a couple gift tanks. And in fact, they are going to buff one. All right, do you remember last patch, the one we just had, where I discussed that a couple of the premiums or gift tanks are getting buffs? Note that the 7201K got a buff, right? All right, so the Bobject is getting a nerf. The 7201 is getting a buff, and the 907 is not getting anything. So let's take a look at that. What does that mean? Well, the top 3 tier 10 tanks in the game win rate are as follows: the 268 version 4 at 57.53, the Object 907 at 56.97, and the 7201K at 55.47. Nerfed, left alone, buffed. What are we doing here? What is the plan, Wargaming? How can you rationalize nerf, left alone, buff at those win rates? These are all overperforming, just in case you didn't realize that, guys. See these? All overperforming. Small data set, but not many people own this thing. So the arguments then become, well, you can't penalize somebody just because they're good, and we have good players playing the 7201 and the Object 907. So then what does the win rate matter? If bad players are doing well in this, you can't penalize them by nerfing the tank. Well, of course you can, because it's overperforming. The same argument applies here. Arguably, the 907 and 7201 should be nerfed. They should. Yeah. What's the program, fellas? What are the reasons for your buffs and nerfs? It makes no sense. Overperforming tanks. I would contend that anything at about a threshold of 53 or so is well overperforming. And it almost doesn't matter what the reason is. It should be changed a bit to bring it in line. What are some of the other things going on here? These are gift tanks. They're not premiums, but they are gift tanks. So that's going to be a factor. Nerfing premiums, or they're not gift tanks, they're award tanks, gift, whatever you want to call it, but award tanks. Nerfing premiums and awards is always going to be very controversial. Although, to be quite honest, even the tech tree tanks are controversial. People ground up to them, so they don't like to see them nerf. I get that. But gameplay and the quality of the game dictates that when something gets out of whack that far, that you have to do something to preserve your gameplay. But what they choose right now is to preserve the it's not really the feelings, but to not irritate certain parts of their player base. The problem is it irritates another part. And I understand that's a balancing act and you're never going to make everybody happy. That's not the point. But when you have clear outliers like these things, and you have a nerf, a left alone, and a buff, people aren't stupid. They look at that and say, what's the program, guys? I don't get it. What? And if there are rationalizations within these, what are they? Because what it looks like is tech tree tank, way on top, flavor of the day, everyone's mad, nerf, okay? So that's more of a publicity stunt than anything. Lots of good players who love this thing, don't touch that. We don't want to anger the top end. And, on stats, stats-wise, from a purely paper standpoint, the 7201 looks weak, and people say it's not a good tank, yet it's overperforming because good players are playing it. There's no rhyme or reason to any of that, is there? And that same argument goes down for other tanks, that overperform. It's not easy. I'm not saying there's a easy solution necessarily, other than you should be open to nerfing anything that is overperforming a little bit. The counter argument is going to be that, hey, look, just because good players play it and overperform it, don't nerf it. That will make it harder for the players below to use the tank. Maybe. But right now, when you got this thing in the game or this thing in the game, it's absolutely dominating. I would say that there's enough battles in the 907 from a data set point to go, this is very clearly overpowered at 56.97 win rate. You could make an argument that at 5,000, the VK 7201, from a statistics standpoint, with that small a data set, that could be an outlier and anomaly. It's not, of course, because the tank's been out a long time and it's always been good because good players are playing it. But I can at least see that. In case the 907, though, why does it get to rage around at a 56.97 and there's no movement to do a damn thing about it? But by golly, we're going to do this because even bad players can get a hold of it and do well. Guess what? Bad players getting a hold of this are going to do better because it's a fantastic tank. Period. Dot. And it's never been touched. So, shenanigans, man. Let's move on. All right, guys, let's talk Frontline a little bit here. I've played 6 to 10 games, so I'm not going to claim to be an absolute expert on the meta and how it goes. But I do have some general observations. Let's start with the UI piece of it. It's currently unavailable, and that brings me right to the very first point, that it's only from noon to 1 a.m. It's got this weird little... I talked about it in my first reaction video where I showed you the first game that was put out last week or so. The first game I ever played, which was kind of fun because it was brand new and I really had no idea what was going on and there was no pressure for anything. So as far as that kind of gaming experience, I enjoyed it. But of course, by the 6th or 7th, I'm trying to figure out how to win. I'm getting mad at people camping. I don't understand how some of the mechanics work. I'm trying to figure that out. And it was fun up to that point. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm taking it in stride as a kind of pub idea where I'm trying to get better, improve, try to figure out the game. Okay, so that whole, I'm getting off track here, and this is going to be a bit of a ramble as I go from point to point, stream of consciousness here, but there's a lot of people in the forum saying, I love it because there's no thread in it, I just rage around and have fun, and I get that, but that doesn't last very long. That's not really the basis for a good game. It's the basis for a good start of a game, but it's not the basis for a good game. Online PvP competitive. All right, back to the time, which brings me to the first point that have now turned into the second point. It's only available from noon till 1 in the morning. I play a lot in the mornings, so to a large extent, Frontline doesn't matter to me. I don't play it at those times. I'm an outlier as far as that goes. Most people play in the evening, so I get that. But as far as my personal look at the timing, it doesn't work for me. I don't know why it's not 24/7. I assume it's because they don't think they can get enough players, or maybe it's going to hurt matchmaking or something. I don't know. What I also don't know is, and if you know, go ahead and post it down below, is this thing available 24/7 on other servers? But yeah, I don't think it... Anyway, I don't understand why it's only from 12 to 1. Doesn't make any sense. Might be a server population issue. I don't know. All right. Oops, I clicked out. Let's go back to it. Because if you try to get in there and it's not currently available, then it says not available. But if you go up here and close this out, oh, you used to be able to get to that. Hold on. Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. Continue. That's the button you want. Continue will then bring you into Frontline mode, which is hard to tell except for this guy right here, which is telling you what my tier is, tier 8. So you can see that I've played 6 to 10 battles, not very many. Done okay in most, not so great in others. Other things about Frontline. Tank selection is tier 8. It's interesting because there's always going to be a meta come up, and it seems to be anything with a little bit of speed. So mediums, to a large extent, are pretty good. Heavies that have some kind of speed are good. If you get to the end game where you're trying to take out the last big guns on defense, then the big super heavies become more of a player, although you're not going to be able to flex. If you can go into a zone that's been having a heavy battle, then you may be fairly effective right there. But if that zone gets cleared up and you need to flex to another, you're going to have a really hard time doing so. So as far as tank selection, it's a bit odd. Scouts are fun, but you're not going to get that top damage award, which is one of the things people are trying, or top experience / top damage. I think it's just top experience. No, it is top damage as well. I guess there's one of each. Sorry, there's one of each. It's going to be hard to get that damage one, especially with a scout. Meta-wise, you could pick different tanks. You could start a medium or a heavy for the initial push or defense of those first caps down the south. You could switch to a scout somewhere in the middle for raging around and blasting people on the side, because there's always side shots available in Frontline because it's so wide open and such a big map. There's always somebody shooting you in the side. It's hard to keep the fight right in front of you, so scouts can be interesting. Then you may shift to a flexible autoloader or medium at the end, so you can move across the back end, or maybe just a more heavy tank so you can really brawl right there at those guns. So there is some thinking as far as what different tanks you can take. But it really boils down to, I think, mediums are doing some of the best work out there because of their speed. The T44 FL is a gift that you can use during this Frontline event, and the T32 FL. So a lot of people who don't have tier 8 running around in these things, and they're kind of fun to farm. What it has done, though, is actually made the T44 Basic a pretty viable tank in the T44-100. Because of its mobility and decent gun, a sort of forgotten tank is actually out in the forefront on this. It's a pretty good Frontline tank, as are a lot of the others. Credits and experience are pretty good. Realize a Frontline game is going to go 20 to 30 minutes, mostly, unless it's some kind of weird, really fast collapse and fast cap kind of idea. That is possible, by the way, but I haven't seen a whole bunch of that. So you're going to be in a longer time, but you're going to get more credits and more experience. If you're running a premium account, you drop a reserve, and you're running premium tanks with not too much gold, you can make a ton of money, even though it's taking 25 to 30 minutes. But if you're doing a more regular mixture, or maybe you're just running tech tree tanks and you're shooting a slightly higher amount of gold because you're trying to get a lot of damage, it's very easy to lose a lot of money, especially if you go through multiple tanks as you're going, because you're doing, say they're dying a lot, then you're doing a lot of repair costs. There is a kind of limit to how many tanks you can run. It's not a factor where you can run in, blast, and then hit J, which, by the way, is like an eject button. It sends you back to get another tank. It's not like you can do that over and over and over and over and just come back. You have to survive X number of minutes. I haven't done the math. There's a little timer on the bottom before you can get your next tank. And if you die before that, you sit there and watch the battle until the timer runs out, and then you get your next tank. There's always a small delay, even if you're past the time it takes to get another life, I'll call it, right there. 15, 20 seconds, something like that. But if you died real quick, it could be another 2 minutes before you're coming in. So there is a limit on how many tanks you can run. And usually when you check the end of it, it's anywhere from 2 tanks to 5, maybe 6 at the most. I think 6 is pretty close to about the limit, with a reasonable amount of living being done. And that's probably going to have you sitting around a bit waiting for your tank to come back. That also assumes that the game goes to about the full 30 minutes or so, kind of thing. Those are all just ballpark things. So if I was running premium and a premium tank and dropping reserves and playing regular games, which average about 7 minutes, 6 to 7 minutes, I could probably make about the same amount of credits as I could in Frontline. I don't think necessarily that Frontline is making much more. I think experience-wise it's making a lot more, because there are some multipliers that you can get by doing better as you go through being a captain or the general or whatever, depending on how you're doing in that particular match. So it can be better experience in credits if you're doing it right. You can actually lose quite a bit if you're not doing well and kind of doing it wrong, or it can be pretty much similar. So the top end, I think, is higher than running a regular pub match, but I think most players are going to find themselves somewhere in the middle. It'll be mostly a wash minus the experience boosters. But at the end of the day, it's a different game experience, right? Very, very different. Mistakes, they matter, but not nearly as much in a regular pub match, where if you lose all your hit points, you're dead. There are repair points. There have been a couple games where I've been able to use those effectively. They're kind of hard. There's a couple phases of the battle where they're useful, and there's a couple phases, depending on where your team is, where they're not very useful if you're not fast. And that's one of the advantages of a scout or a medium. They can get to those, get fixed, and get back into the battle. If you're running a super heavy, unless you just happen to drive over it on the way to where you're going, you're just not going to turn around and go back and hit one of those repair points. So that's a little bit, I think, of an issue. And as the meta on it solidifies, I think some tanks you're going to find just will almost never be played, which is what happens when you have these kind of specialized things. Because there's not multiple maps, then, and everyone knows it's that map, then that's how that meta is going to metastasize around that particular map. If they provided another 2 or 3 maps, maybe one is just a full up huge city map, or maybe one that's actually maybe a little smaller, big city map a little smaller, then you might see the heavies and things come to the forefront on those maps. And in that case, it'll be much like a pub match where you just grab a tank you want, click on, and you don't know what map you're going to get. Therefore, you could be in a good map or you could be on a bad map. But right now, that simply doesn't exist. All right, my overall thoughts on it. What I'll say is I don't hate it as much as I thought I might. I know I came out several times and said, man, I'm a little bit worried about this. I'm glad that it's not as frantic and bunny hoppy as Call of Duty and some of these other games used to be. It's been a long time since I played an FPS, but I watch my son play all these things, Fortnite and all this other stuff, and it's kind of crazy. Very chaotic. So it's not really that, but it's more of that than a regular pub match is. It's still the tanks that we love and drive around. They don't move very quickly, which is good. All that is still there. But the respawns, the magic points, the time limit, all those are kind of negatives for me. Sitting down, if I'm just sitting down, I know I want to play a quick game. I know I'm only in it for maybe 15 minutes, and most likely 6 or 7, and then I can move on. I sit down for a Frontline game, I know I'm in it for 20 to maybe 30 minutes, and that's quite a negative for me. And that's pretty much it for Frontline. All right, I had one extra thing I wanted to add on to the end of it. I don't usually do other games, but this is one I picked up recently. It's called BattleTech. If you're old like me and played any of the pen and paper games in the 90s, 80s and 90s kind of thing, even into the early 70s or late 70s, you may have played a mech warrior game called BattleTech, which was a pretty great pen and paper game. Harebrained Schemes has basically taken that rule set and turned it into a computer game, pretty closely tied into exactly the rule set. In fact, it may be the exact rule set. I don't know what version they end up using, but it's pretty good. So it's called BattleTech. It's turn-based. It's big stompy robots, a lot like tanks, but turn-based. And this is the beginning page right here. So you click on to Campaign or Skirmish. I'm going to go to Continue. And I'm not going to show you a battle. I may do one in a little while. It takes a while for these things to play. It does take a while to load in. Interestingly, they made this with Unity, which is a game designing piece of software, open source, that I'm using for several things. Get it loaded in here. And you see that's pretty well done. I mean, this is a A-rated title, I would say, pretty much, but you can go to your command center.
Commander.
Get your missions here. Go to the barracks. Check out your mech warriors. They have skills, so they're persistent. You have X amount that you can have on the... you see this is Guido. That's me. Go to your mech bay.
Nice to see you down here in the hole.
Get your different mechs right here. They go by tons, 55 ton, which is about middle. The biggest one's 100, I believe. There might be bigger ones in the game, but as I remember, it was 100. You see their mechs sitting back there. You go to refit. And this is where it's pretty cool because you can customize the mech. You can move weapons around, put different weapons on it. Heat sinks to dissipate heat. So it's pretty fiddly, but it's very cool. Recommend it. If you're into it at all, take a look at it. It's on Steam. I want to say it's about 40 bucks. It's a great game. As if people who play World of Tanks need another thing to soak up their time. Alright, that's all I got for that. Well guys, I'm down to the bottom of my coffee and that is it. It's time to get the Mother's Day festival going. What did we talk about today? I don't know. The object, that's ridiculous. The missions and the specials with a little update on the shenanigans. The shenanigans in the gift shop. Like I said, the object, a little bit about Frontline, and then I showed you a game to take away more of your time. I'll probably do a review video on BattleTech here in the near future once I get my feet a little wetter so I understand a little more about what's going on. Pretty good game. World of Tanks is World of Tanks. Enjoy your weekend. We will see you next week if not before that. Keep on sending the videos. Keep on supporting the channel. I appreciate it. We'll see you later.